I'm Alexa. I'm 24. I actually turned 24 yesterday. I'm the owner of Badfish, Florida in North Palm Beach, Florida. It's a freshwater specialty aquarium shop. I actually opened it in 2020 at the start of the pandemic. So I'm just here. I wanted to take a minute to say thank you to Aquashella for giving me a platform to speak on. I'm really nervous. I've never done any public speaking before, but we'll get through it. So I just want to start by giving you like a little bit of history about myself. I always grew up in a house with fish tanks. My mom had a massive reef tank. Every weekend she would take me to the fish store and we would pick out different corals, different fish. She eventually got sick of me picking out like all the predator fish that would eat her little shrimps and stuff in her tank. So she got me my own reef tank. And I had that for a while. I really enjoyed going out and catching my own fish and getting water from the ocean, sand from the beach, and starting my tank with what I could find. So I would go out in the river and I would get plants from the sandbar, crabs, fish, have it all set up. And it really stuck with me for my whole life. Like I can't imagine a time where I haven't had a fish tank in my house. I always knew as a little kid that I was gonna have a fish store at some point. Didn't know it was gonna be just fish. I think I started out, wanting a full pet store with bunnies and dogs and everything. But I'm allergic to everything with fur, so I stick with the fish. I actually started out selling stuff in my fish room at my house a few years ago. So there's a picture of me in my fish room before. That's where Badfish started. I was breeding guppies and bettas. I had a lot of plants going, and I really needed to make some money to keep up with my hobby. So I was like, okay, what do people always want? They like plants and they like fish. So I was like putting plants on OfferUp, and I was putting fish on OfferUp, but they always delete like live animal posts, so it wasn't working so well. But I put pothos, the houseplant, like little cuttings to take nitrates out of your filter, and you wouldn't believe how many I sold. It really it took off. It started as one, and then before you knew it, I was digging through my yard to find more of the pothos to cut and sell. And when people would come to pick it up, they were in my house, which was really awkward, and they were seeing like my other tanks, and they were always like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for this fish, I've been looking for this plant, but there's nowhere to get it. And I kind of felt the same way because around me, there was no freshwater store. There was saltwater stores everywhere, nowhere for freshwater, and if you didn't want to drive like 45 minutes, your only choice was Petco. So I kind of got an idea from that and realized there's really a lot of stuff that people want. So I decided to keep selling stuff out of my house, and eventually I realized I can't do that anymore. It's kind of weird having people in and out of my house, and I couldn't get a lot of the accounts that I wanted to get. So I decided I would start looking for a business location in the beginning of 2020. So I started searching in January. I ended up finding this little spot here. It's very small. It's about 1,000 square feet. That's how it looked when I signed the lease. I signed the lease on March 12th, 2020, and about 2 weeks later, we went into the COVID lockdown. I had put all of my money, put all of my time. I had quit my job. I was ready to start this business, and I didn't really know what to do because I couldn't get anything. I needed to remodel the whole place. I needed fish tanks. There was no shipping anymore. So I really had to work with what I could find. And it did take a while. So I started in March. I didn't open till June. My mom helped me renovate the whole store. So we ripped out the floor, put in new flooring, we painted. It all took a really long time because I couldn't order anything. So I could go to Home Depot and pick up what they had then. And then I would have to wait until they got more shipments of flooring or lumber to build because there really wasn't anything going on here. But it did give us a lot of time to prepare the store because we couldn't have anyone come in anyway. So eventually we started getting some tanks in, and you could see they're on a homemade shelf because all of the big retail tank systems, they weren't available for shipping anymore because the country was shut down. So I couldn't find any tanks. I was able to get some that I could order, but the shipping was thousands of dollars. Every tank in my store came from Petco's dollar per gallon sale. I drove all over Florida with my mom. We had to keep going back and forth a bunch of times, but we got them all. We got them in there. And it definitely makes the store more unique because it really is like a DIY store. There's no mass-produced tank systems or anything like you would see in Petco in here. It's all something you can accomplish in your own home, which I really like because it helps hobbyists to see what really is achievable. We eventually put in this big tub in the middle. It's a stock tank for horses to drink out of. I got it at Tractor Supply, and my mom helped pretty much set up everything, so that's who's in the picture. And I'd like to say thank you to her because she has dedicated a whole year's worth of time to working there. She volunteers in the store now. She set the whole thing up. Like, she still comes every day. She vacuums the floor for me. I couldn't do it without her. It would be a mess. So eventually we got all the lumber in. We had to get the wood stain. That was another thing that was really difficult because by the time I picked the color, Lowe's only had 2 cans left, and then they couldn't order any more stains. So I had to drive around to all different Home Depot and Lowe's and try to match to the same color I already had, which was a little difficult, but we got it figured out. I was getting ready to open. It was really crazy. I didn't know what to do because I was, buying tanks. I had all the fish ready to come in, but I didn't really know if people wanted to go out and shop during a pandemic. So I just kind of had to take a shot in the dark and hope they would come. I ended up ordering my first fish. So they came in, and I actually imported fish from Colombia and Indonesia right before I opened. So I became a fish importer myself. I imported the fish, which was a crazy experience for me because I had nobody to ask, like, oh, hey, like, how do you import fish? It was really confusing. I knew I had to pick them up at Miami airport, and nobody there spoke English. My Spanish is really, really bad. I was really lost, and thankfully some guy there helped me. He helped me get my fish, but it took like 6 hours of me being lost in the cargo airport before I actually got them. So it's definitely a challenge, like trying to figure these things out on my own. But there's always people there that are, willing to help, which is a really great thing. So those are just some of the fish that came in on the first shipment. We had the silver arowanas, the bumblebee catfish, the flagtails, and the green phantom plecos. So I had those at the grand opening. It didn't open until June 15th. So March 12th to June 15th is how long I took to set up. And you can see in the pictures like how much it has progressed. I don't think anyone, maybe like 3 people came to the grand opening. So it was really disappointing. And I kind of told my mom, I was like, wait, this is really bad, right? Nobody's coming. And a few weeks went by and like customers would come in here and there, but nobody was coming. Like really, it was really slow. Like I'd make like 1 or 2 sales a day. And I was really worried. I did not think that it would ever work out. I thought like, oh, I'm going to be closed in a few months. This is not happening. So I decided I would bring in more inventory. So I found another tank. Actually, it was a tank from Petco that was going out of business down the street. So it was one of those big systems. I had to modify it to get it through the door of my store and to get it to fit in. But it was really, really frightening buying a tank from a store that was going out of business down the street. I'm really happy I got a good deal on the tank because they were about to take it to the dump. So this is an updated picture of the store. So you can see it really has progressed. It really has changed. And one day people just started coming. It was really great. I really, for a while, it was months of me thinking nobody's gonna come. People started coming in around November. It was getting a lot busier, and we had some heavy rain, and my ceiling leaked and the whole roof fell in onto the store. I don't have any pictures of that. It happened. It was really horrible. I was too stressed out to take any pictures. Thankfully, I saved my laptop and most of the fish, but the power was out and there was a lot of rain inside, so I did lose about a quarter of my fish in the store. And I couldn't open either because there was a big hole and there was panels falling from the ceiling. I really thought that was it. I thought it was over. And all my customers, they were there for me. They were there to help me clean up. They were there. They ordered stuff online. They came, picked up stuff outside. And that's the only reason I was able to stay open is because of all of my customers that had been coming in. And they still come to this day, which is they're friends and family to me now because they helped me through that. Without them, it would have been done for me, really. So I was really grateful for everyone. They stuck by my side while we rebuilt. We got everything back up and running, and really, after that, it took off. I had a little thing in the newspaper, and people started coming in left and right, and then that brought a whole new set of challenges for me. Being only 24 years old, there's a lot of people that question my knowledge in the store, which is fine because I love to hear other people's ideas, and I love to share my own ideas. But there's always going to be those people that come in and they don't think you could know, and they will talk crap to you. They will tell you you're too young. or they will tell you don't have enough experience because you don't have 90 years of experience, but that doesn't mean that you didn't do your research. That doesn't mean that you don't care. It kind of is something that I had to learn to deal with on my own. And it was tricky at first when people would come in and make a comment. It would make me feel pretty bad, but now it really inspires me to be better and to prove them wrong. So I had to turn that around. And when somebody told me, you don't have the personality for this, you're not going to make it, this isn't for you, that made me really want to push harder to be successful. And also being a girl, there's a lot of challenges that come with that too. There's a lot of people that don't want to see girls in our industry, which is really sad because I feel like half of us are girls here. We don't always want to speak up or something because there's always these guys that kind of will tell you you're wrong. And it's just one of those things. You just got to roll your eyes and keep going because it's always going to happen. You can't stop it. You could just take it and laugh, really. So those are just some more pictures of the store now. It is expanding every day. Like I'm always fitting something else in there, kind of trying to squish in another tank. There's tanks on the floor, there's tanks way up high, there's tanks above a pond. It's really interesting to stand there and watch it come from nothing to something. And now that there's people that come back, once or twice a week, it's really cool to build these relationships with people because I never had friends in the hobby. I didn't grow up with friends that also had fish tanks, but now I do, and it's so cool to see somebody send me a picture of their tank. They're like, oh, thank you so much for the plants, they look so good. And then they'll come in a month and show me how much it's grown in. And for me, that really is the best part, is making connections, helping people out, helping people kind of figure out their tanks, but also helping people find their way in the hobby. Because I found out for myself, there's a lot of information out there, but it's confusing to try to figure out like who's a reliable source and who's not. And sometimes you can't just go like into a pet store and have a conversation with someone. But at my store, you could come in, we could talk, we could bounce ideas off of each other, we could find someone to call, and we could really figure out like a lot of stuff in the hobby to make keeping fish more fun for people and easier as well. And it doesn't have to be so limited. I just want to show people that this hobby is accessible to everybody, and we can all kind of just get along and have fun without, judging anybody based off of their gender or their age. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
On your stock tank with the plants, what type of lights do you use? Are those aquaponic lights?
So on my plant tanks, I use the Finex Stingray. No, they're the planted Fuge Ray lights. So they're not the one with the remote or anything. They just have the on-off button. And I never use the blue light because for me, that just grows a ton of algae. So just the red and the white. And they do really well. I run CO2 in one tank and the other I don't. So I like people to be able to see, what kind of plants they can manage on a low tech and a high tech.
So exactly how does shipping work?
So if I was going to ship a fish to you, I would, send you a picture of the fish so you could pick out which one you liked, make sure you like it. Then I would quarantine it first. So I only ship fish specifically on Mondays and Tuesdays. So when you order your fish, you're going to have to wait until like the next available Monday or Tuesday. He's going to be quarantined. He's not going to eat for 3 days because I don't want your fish to go number 2 in the bag and make a lot of ammonia. So he'll get all packed up. He'll get double bagged with pure oxygen, put in a cooler, and shipped out to you overnight.
Do you treat your tanks at all when you get your shipments in?
So all my fish get treated before they come into, when they're in the store, but before they're for sale. So everybody gets treated with IGX and General Cure, and then if it's something more specific, I take it from there. They also all eat a deworming pellet for the first 4 days of being there. So everybody does get treated.
How do you deal with or control algae in your tanks?
So when I have to deal with algae in my tanks, I like to put in stuff that will eat it usually. And I do get a lot of algae in my tanks because I have so much light and my light is on all the time. And I also have a window that gets a lot of sun. So we do get, green algae on the walls. I like to keep platies in my plant tanks because they eat a lot of algae for me, as well as the American flag killifish and the Amano shrimp. But you could always just cut back on light and do a few more water changes will help you out as well.
Like, how do you source your fish? And is there any moral, things that you have that your personal, self when you are sourcing fish?
I became an importer myself, so I could import my own fish, because a lot of the places in the United States, I feel, don't take care of the fish as well as they do in other countries. And I really like to get fish that are well cared for and support people that are actually taking care of the animals. So I try to get in touch with anyone I get fish from, try to see pictures of their facility, talk to them on the phone, and then decide from there whether or not I'll order. I do bring in wild caught fish, but I only bring in wild caught fish that would be like sustainably sourced. So no, endangered fish being pulled from the wild, which is always important. We don't want to see that at all. And I do get some fish domestically in America. I do like to use local breeders in Florida that breed their own fish, and I just make sure that they actually have a nice facility. They're not having, bettas in tiny little cups. So try to bring everything in that's sustainably sourced and ethical, because I really don't like seeing fish in bad conditions at all. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.